Hello and welcome everyone. This is Cavalier Astoria, and today we'll be actually doing another tier list. This time also in Warhammer 40k. So I'm gonna be taking a little break from the Brothers in Arms series. They'll continue on Wednesday. I just want to create this little dumb fun video about me ranking all of the founding Space Marine legions. And I say founding, so no Black Templars, no Crimson Fist, or anything like that. We're just going to be talking about the basic 18 founding legions. Uh, Technically speaking, there's 20, but two of them have been completely eliminated. So, yeah, we're just going to be talking about these 18. And we'll be going in order. So, we got the first, the third, the fourth, the fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th, 12th, 11 got eliminated, as well as 2. 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, and 20th legions. And obviously, we'll be doing a S to F tier, and standard tier list rules for me will apply here. Basically, if something is closer to this side, the higher I think it is, versus if something's closer to this side, the lower I think it is. So I'll be ordering the tier list as I go. But enough with that. We got Dark Angels. So let's start off Dark Angels. Dark Angels kind of have like a knightly vibe going on, and they're kind of cool. And I know in my previous ranking the Warhammer faction list, I said that their lore sucks. I should have clarified that saying their lore prior to Lionel Johnson's return is not great, because it kind of has the one shtick of we have to find the fallen, we have to find the fallen. And to be honest, the only character I really like still is just Lionel Johnson. Rest of the Legion's kind of okay. They have a cool aesthetic. I love the fact that they're plasma heavy. But honestly, they're probably a B in comparison to everything else, and I'll be moving everything around. But yeah, like they're probably a B. Like I don't mind them, but also it's like cool they exist. I'd rather move on to other interesting legions, except for Lionel Johnson. Um, Meanwhile, we got Emperor's Children. Emperor's Children, uh, our first Chaos Space Marine Legion. And of course, they have the whole shtick of the Noise Marines. They worship Slanesh. So, that's kind of interesting. But, gonna be honest, Emperor's Children, I'm not a huge fan of, like, any of their characters. Like, Fulcrum's kind of interesting, but, like, not the biggest fan of like Snake Fulgrim. I'm more of the Horus Heresy era Fulgrim. Before he got fully corrupted. They do have Rylanor, but that's kind of the problem. Is like, in my opinion, the coolest aspects of the uh, Emperor's Children tend to be the more loyalist Space Marines, who didn't follow them into chaos. Like, I guess Fabius Bile's a bit cool, but honestly, they're probably like a C. And I'll be moving them around as time goes on. Meanwhile, we have next the Iron Hands. No, not Iron Hands. Iron Warriors. For fuck's sake. I always get annoyed at this. I almost said Iron Hands again. You got the Iron Warriors, and you got the Iron Hands, and I hate that naming convention. Like, half of these guys have the same exact fucking name, and it's so annoying. Well, not half of them, but like, God, Iron Warriors and Iron Hands. Oh, I hate it so much. What is there to say with the Iron Hands? They're Chaos Undivided, so that's actually kind of cool. The fact that they kind of don't work for any particular god. I actually prefer Chaos Undivided over most other allegiances. But you have Perturabo, who's just a petulant man child, and you have just a lot more of a focus on siege warfare. I think Iron Hands are relatively like inoffensive, but at the end of the day, it's like I don't care too much about them. They're probably going to be with Dark Angels, a little bit lower than Dark Angels. Um, I like aspects of them, but also it's like a I hate their name. I hate the fact that it's Iron Warriors and Iron Hands. I fucking hate that so much. Um, Actually, you know what? I just remembered my favorite lore fact. They're actually going to go above by Dark Angels. I completely blanked out of my mind that they basically beat up demons and shove them into machines. So, that's actually really cool. Actually, that's going to go in A. Probably a low A, but I really enjoy that little lore bit of them basically beating the crap out of demons and then shoving them into vehicles. That's actually kind of cool. I completely blanked out of my mind. I'm like, you know what? That's actually their one cool shtick. Their Primarch is not great, and I'm not the biggest fan of their aesthetic. But they're kind of the opposite of the Iron Hands, which I guess is the reason why they're the same. Although admittedly, they're also the opposite of the Imperial Fist. Then again, Perturabo just was wanting to basically fight everyone and was a petulant man baby. But yeah, we'll go ahead and move on to White Scars. White Scars, they're the gotta go fast legion. They like bikes. They like moving around fast. They also are half a Psyker legion, which is kind of cool. They're kind of like the loyalist version of Thousand Sons, which is really interesting because you don't really think about that. Because normally you just think, oh, these are the guys who drive around on bikes, but no, they're also a pretty heavy Psyker legion. Um, Honestly, probably B tier. Like, Jagatai Khan's pretty cool. I like their Mongolian style and their Mongolian like theme going on. The white armor just looks great. And yeah, my only real problem with White Scars is the Invader ATV. That just sucks as a model. And also, I'm not the biggest fan of Psychers, although I think that the White Scars overall do Psychers the best because basically they're like, look, we'll use Psychers when we have to, when we have no other choice. And they kind of respect the warp and that stuff, which is how you should use Psychers. Thousand Sons. I'll get to you eventually. But yeah, White Scars are pretty cool. Space Wolves. Space Wolves. I like their Primarch, Lehman Russ. Lehman Russ, if you don't know, is it's kind of the opposite of Lionel Johnson, where in the Horus Heresy, Lionel Johnson is described as a beast in the guise of a man, versus Lehman Russ is a man in the guise of a beast. Um, I also really like the fact that the Space Wolves overall are kind of like a more nicer faction. Um, and like they'll help out guard. Contrary to popular belief, they don't like saving civilians. They just like saving people who prove their worth and kind of like prove their skill in combat. I mean, they will rescue civilians sometimes, but it's like they they'd rather not. They'd rather people fight for themselves. Um, but my only real gripe with Space Wolves, um, I wish they leaned in more into the Norse mythology side rather than the wolf side. Because I'm gonna be honest, like taking a look at like half of like the names of it being wolf and stuff like that, and it's like I don't really care about like stuff like the wolf and all like the wolf aspects. I love the Norse mythology because I think Norse mythology is just really cool. So I would rather they leaned in more into the Norse mythology over the actual wolf aspect. But honestly, they're still pretty solid. I'm gonna put them in A. They're still carried very heavily by Norse mythology rather than the wolf aspect. Um, Also, just a quick aside, the only thing Lehman Russ did wrong on Prospero was not finishing the job. Either way, let's move on to the Imperial Fist. Imperial Fist, the opposite legion of the Iron Hand. Just, do you see why I hate this fucking name so goddamn much? Iron Warriors, Iron Hands. Fuck that. Like, they're the opposite of the Iron Warriors, and they, while these guys are more of a siege force, these guys are more defenders. Like the Imperial Fist are defenders. Rogel Dorn is great in Emperor Texas Speech. I will admit I don't really know too much lore behind Rogel Dorn other than the fact that he's basically the biggest like stick in the mud ever. And also, especially in like modern 40k lore, it seems like they kind of get like overshadowed by the Black Templars more so than the actual, themselves. It's like kind of like the Black Templars are becoming what the Imperial Fists are. Not in, of course, like doctrine or anything like that, but I meant like prevalence and lore and stuff. So it's like, that it's not super good. I do like how they're Gravis heavy. I think Gravis is the best looking armor out of all the Primaris armor. But also, it's like I would rather see Gravis in other legions. I'm not the biggest fan of yellow. Their Primarch, as far as I can tell, is kind of cool. And I think they kind of get overshadowed by the Black Templars. Like if I was ranking the Black Templars would be above the Imperial Fist. So I'm probably gonna put them below Dark Angels. Like, they're cool, but also it's like I don't feel strongly towards them whatsoever. Oh. We got the Night Lords. Night Lords, how do I describe the Night Lords in a somewhat friendly, family-friendly way? Imagine Batman mixed with the Joker and has a really twisted sense of justice and straight up just murders innocent people with no pause whatsoever. That is the Night Lords. Their entire shtick is fear. Their entire job is to instill fear into their enemies and stuff. Conrad Kurz is an interesting character. I'm personally not the biggest fan of him. I think he's interesting. It's just that I think he's better as a complement to Sanguinius. But then again, I have started reading the Night Lords trilogy, and they're pretty good books. So do I really want to put the Night Lords in A? They have a good book. Although admittedly, I think I prefer I've only read the first book, but I think I prefer the more human side of it rather than the Astartes side of it. But like I preferred Eurydice and later Octavia and Septimus over reading about like the actual Night Lords. Except for the Titan fight. The Titan fight was pretty cool. So let's go ahead and do A. Like they're an interesting legion. They have a good book series. And they are they're a faction. They're quite an interesting faction of just guys obsessed with fear, spreading fear. They wear human skin and that stuff. These guys are completely fucked up in the head. um, but you know, it makes them interesting. It makes them interesting antagonists. All right, next up, we got Blood Angels. Blood Angels, Blood Angels, Blood Angels, Blood Angels. I'm not actually the biggest fan of Blood Angels as a whole. Because my whole problem with Blood Angels is it seems like their entire shtick is just vampire, and that's really it. And I'm not too interested in the whole vampire setup. Just in general, I'm not the biggest fan of vampires, unless if they're specifically an enemy. Like I'm gonna be honest, if Blood Angels were a chaos, if they fell to chaos rather than the World Eaters, they'd be a fucking S tier. I would love them. Um, like I would really love them, but like as loyalist, there's cool aspects to them. Um, I like Sanguinius. Sanguinius seems to be a pretty cool guy, but also it's like he's kind of coded to die, and I'm gonna be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of his death and the end of Horus Heresy. Where it seems like he kind of dies for no reason, rather than the original one where he opens the chip in Horus's armor that allows the Emperor to kill Horus. I would prefer if they kept with that old lore rather than getting rid of that and just having him kind of die for nothing, in my opinion. Like, you didn't really need to fight him, and I know there's going to be someone going to be like, oh, well, you know, he had to die because, you know, it inspired the Emperor to kill him or whatever. And I'm like, but even then, I wish, like, Sanguinius had more of an impact into that. You got Dante, who's pretty cool. I don't care about Miss Fiston whatsoever. Um, and Death Company is kind of cool. I'm just not the biggest fan of Red Thirst. Like this is one of the most like this faction's not really for me. I'm not into vampires as a whole, and like I wish they. Yeah, I'm not huge into vampires as a whole, unless if they are villains, which is why if they were chaos, if they fell to corn, they would be S tier. Like I would love them. All right, moving on. We'll get to the Iron Hands. The Iron Hands, not to be confused with the Iron Warriors, because fuck understanding lore and not getting names confused whatsoever. We got the Iron Hands, whose Primarch is Iron Hands, and they have Iron Hands, and that entire joke of just like these guys are literal. Like Ferrus Manus is their Primarch, and his name translates to Iron Hands. You know, he has Iron Hands, and everyone of their legion wants to cut off their hands and have Iron Hands to be like their dad. And it's like, I'm not the biggest fan of Iron Hands as a whole. Um, I love their units that they buff. I'm a huge Dreadnought fan. I mean, I'm gonna be honest here. I think every single Warhammer fan is a huge fan of Dreadnoughts. Dreadnoughts are just cool. Um, but I'm not really into the tanks of Warhammer. Oh no, okay. I'm not into like the Astartes tanks. I love Imperial Guard tanks, but like I'm not the biggest fan of like Astartes tanks. Um, but dreadnoughts are cool. But honestly, this is like the first F tier. Like they're the first F tier. I don't really like their lore. I don't like the fact that they are they're one of the chapters that basically is like absolutely no regard for humans whatsoever. And also like they're just they're they're kind of just dicks. They're kind of just dicks, and like I don't like their whole aesthetic, like that whole um like how do I explain it? Okay, I think this is the best way to explain it. It to me largely it feels like the Iron Hands are largely Adeptus Mechanicus but Space Marines. That's what they kind of feel like to me. I know that it's not the same, but I'm also kind of just sitting here like if I want that rough aesthetic, like this almost inhuman uh force, like who's working for the Imperium, but is like completely lost their humanity and such. I'd rather go with the Adeptus Mechanicus. I think they just have a cooler vibe versus like the Iron Hands. They just feel like they feel like the obligatory Space Marine version, and I'm not the biggest fan. And I know again they're not entirely like the same, but and I'm not explaining this particularly well, but like in my opinion, like Iron Hands, everything Iron Hands do, I prefer other factions because I think other factions do it better. Like if I want the mechanical stuff, I would much rather have the Adeptus Mechanicus. If I wanted the more um the, like the more heavier like armor style like Imperial Fist, like I'd rather have Imperial Fist. And also their name is just stupid. It is so stupid. Why is it Iron Hands and Iron Warriors? Why? Why? It is so confusing and it sucks. Also, again, I know I'm dunking on Iron Hands a lot, but they don't have a Primarch. I know they have a Primarch, but they don't have a Primarch. Ferrus Manus is a plot point. He is not a character. He is a plot point for Fulgrim, and that is all he is. That's it. This guy, like, they don't have a Primarch because their Primarch is just there to get killed by Fulgrim to force Fulgrim to become a demon. That is it. That is the only reason why Ferrus Manus exists, and GW is not interested in making him into an actual character. Alright, meanwhile, let's stop being negative because we got World Eaters. I love World Eaters. Um, World Eaters are just cool. In Space Marines, I think that they're easily one of the better legions. Um, I just love their entire aesthetic. I love the fact that they basically are Unga Bunga, run down the hill and kill you in their chaos form versus back in during the Horus Heresy and before then they were a lot more like tactical. They fought in like phalanx and stuff like that. They fought more like Greeks rather than like the chaotic berserkers. So kind of seeing their fighting together as one slowly devolved into just a bunch of bloodthirsty guys running out there doing whatever they want. I find that really cool. They have the most sympathetic Primarch in Angron. Like, Angron just got screwed. He just got a bad dealt with life. And the Emperor completely screwed him over at, is it Nyceria? When he pulled out Angron out, so then all of his slaves that he freed thinks that he abandoned him and ran away from the battle, and they all got slaughtered. And then the Emperor was like, "All right, let's go." Like this isn't gonna cause a problem a couple years down the line with my son turning traitor against me. Turns out, it was traitor. And personally, in my opinion, I also find it really fascinating the fact that it seems like they were kind of built up to be more like paladins. Like, I find that really interesting. Like, Ingron's special ability where he could calm people down that later was destroyed by the Butcher's Nails. Honestly, I think, like, them as paladins really, really works. Like, I'm currently homebrewing a loyalist World Eaters army, where I'm kind of having them go down the more paladin route. And personally, in my opinion, like the idea of World Eaters fighting as a unit, fighting as one, and they kind of like more honorable paladins who, fight in gladiatorial combats on their ship. And I just find World Eaters to be really interesting. Also, they have Lotara Seren, best girl in all of 40k. That's not even a question. So yeah, we'll leave World Eaters, and we'll move on to the Ultramarines. Now, I'm about to be called incredibly basic. Ultramarines are my favorite Space Marine chapter, or Legion. Also chapter. They're just my favorite. Um, although I think I said also that World Eaters are my favorite. I like World Eaters. I like Ultramarines a bit. Actually, you know what? I'll put World Eaters above them. I know I just contradicted myself saying that Ultramarines are my favorite. They're probably my favorite loyalist. I just I love the color blue. That's just the first thing. I love the color blue. It's my favorite color. And also I love their Roman aesthetic. I think it's really cool, and I also love that they are the more tactical uh, Space Marines who think ahead, and they don't just unga bunga their way into a situation, which is hilarious when you realize who I put them next to and the reason why I love them. I love the World Eaters because they're unga bunga Space Marines who just charge in without thinking, and I love the Ultramarines because they are smart Space Marines who don't just charge in unga bunga. It's an interesting contrast. Um, but yeah, I think Ultramarines are pretty cool. They also have the best Primarch in Rubita Gilliman. Gilliman is likable. He's a great protagonist, and he's just like, I just love almost everything about Rubita Gilliman. The more I learn about him, the more I'm just like, yep, he's my favorite. Like, he's very human, but also really smart and like willing to do what it takes in order to win and genuinely improve the Imperium. And I also love the fact that his ultimate dream was just to retire and farm for the rest of his life. Like, so Gilliman's cool. The Ultramarines, they're kind of cool. Um, where I think they start to go downhill is I'm not the biggest fan of the Ultramarines plot armor, like with most people. I find it more interesting when a chapter or a faction is just like it faces adversity and like it will lose a lot. I much prefer that over just a chapter shows up and it auto wins. Like no, like I'd rather see a chapter struggle and even lose sometimes. Also, Emperor Texas Speech completely ruined my anything to do with Cato Sicarius because every single time that man speaks, the first things in my mind is, "It is I, Cato Sicarius." It's like it is so like it completely ruined Cato Sicarius for me to the point where I'm like, I just can't take this guy serious whatsoever. um. Also, Malum Cato is really cool. Bolt Gun is a really cool game. Go play Bolt Gun. Also, Space Marine 2. I just recently played Space Marine 2, and yeah, Lieutenant Titus is a pretty cool guy. Very cool guy. So yeah, I really enjoy Space Marines. They're kind of like the Space Marines. I really enjoy the Ultramarines. They're kind of a basic vanilla faction, but it's like nothing wrong with vanilla. Nothing wrong with vanilla at all. Um, yeah, like my perfect chapter. And again, like I'm home brewing a custom Space Marine chapter, which I should not at all build because I'm currently still trying to build an Imperial Guard army and a Sisters army. I really do not need to be going into a third army. But yeah, my Space Marine chapter is kind of like a marriage between these two, where you have the berserker style of the World Eaters, mix that with Paladins, and the more tactical flexibility of the Ultramarines. That's kind of like where I'm going with my Space Marine chapter. Either way, we need to go on to Death Guard. Death Guard is really cool. I really enjoy Death Guard. I think they're an A, like easily above Space Wolves. In fact, if I remember correctly, when I was doing my faction tier list of ranking all of them, I realized like afterwards I put Death Guard below Space Wolves, which I can't remember why I did that. I think I mostly did it to dunk on Thousand Suns. But I love Death Guard. I love their aesthetic. Papa Nurgle is a great Chaos God. And I love the fact that they are just so disgusting to look at. Like, their models are disgusting to look at. Yet they are so beautiful. Like, they fit the exact aesthetic. Like, whoever designed the Death Guard models knew the exact, like, assignment. They knew exactly what to do to make a disgusting yet beautiful model. Like, Death Guard's just cool. I love their helmets. I love the older style helmets. Those are really cool. Mortarion actually looks like a pretty dang good model. But yeah, I know people are not big on Mortarion. I'm okay with. I'm more indifferent on Mortarion, but yeah, Death Guard just looks cool. It's just they're just a really cool legion in my opinion. Yeah, like, and I also like how, like, in lore, how they're kind of like this slow moving inevitable death coming towards you. It's like, if the Marines don't kill you, the disease is gonna kill you. And you can't really kill Death Guard because they are tanky boys. But yeah, I like Death Guard. Death Guard are really cool in my opinion. Alright, now we have the Thousand Fails. Thousand Fails coming up. Thousand Suns. The worst Space Marine chapter or Legion, by far. I am not the biggest fan of Thousand Suns. I think Thousand Suns just suck. First thing first, their lore of how basically during the heresy to the point where they would just abandon, objectives to go hunting for some like random books is infuriating, and the fact that basically no one punished them until the Council of Nicaea, and then they proceeded to completely ignore the Council of Nicaea and just were like, no, we're just gonna do Sanker stuff anyway. And it's like, you could have at least done the White Scars approach, which is, let's be careful with the warp. Thousand Suns are like, no, we're gonna like snort the warp energy and stuff, and why do we keep turning into demons and stuff? God, like, Thousand Suns, I hate Thousand Suns so much. And like I said before, like Prospero, like, Lehman Russ and Space Wolves are perfectly justified in pretty much everything they did, aside from killing civilians, but we'll glaze over that. But like, the fact that Magnus completely punched a hole in the webway, which I will give him credit for. That's a problem on the Emperor. The Emperor did not tell Magnus about the webway project, despite the fact that it seemed like Magnus's role after the heresy was to, maintain the webway project by sitting on the golden throne. So maybe he should have known that. This is your daily reminder that the God Emperor of Mankind is not smart. The Emperor is not a very smart guy. He's a genius at, being able to make Space Marines and stuff like that, but he was a horrible father and someone who just completely misunderstood humanity, as well as the warp and chaos as a whole. But yeah, Magnus punched a hole directly through the webway, dooming Terra forever, because now demons can just pour through it, and that that's the reason why the Emperor isn't turned into the Golden Throne. So that I'm not going to peg onto Magnus. However, the rest of Magnus's actions, yeah, he's responsible for pretty much all of them. Like the fact that he decided to basically not contact Lehman Russ whatsoever to try to explain the situation. He then proceeded to deactivate his defenses, order his men to stand by. His men decide not to stand by, and this results in the Space Wolves coming down and fighting the Thousand Suns and killing civilians and that stuff. And only after way late in the battle, in comes Magnus to, fight. And it's like, dude, you are like way too late. Like, you could have intervened at any time. Like, if you fought at the start, I would have respected you. If you stuck to your guns and basically tried to prove that you were a loyalist until the last second when eventually you get sucked up by Tzeentch, like, I would have respected you. It's the fact that he constantly flip-flops between the two, and it's like, dude, pick a lane and stick with it. But yeah, Magnus did everything wrong, with the exception of the White White Project and making that deal with Tzeentch to save his sons, because, again, the Emperor is an idiot and did not tell the Psyker, his psychic son, the second most powerful Psyker in the galaxy, about chaos. Yeah, the Emperor completely sucked with that. But yeah, my other major problem with Thousand Suns is I just don't find them to be all that interesting. I don't care about Ahriman. When Thousand Suns showed up in the Space Marine 2 campaign, I was actually genuinely really happy, because that meant I got to kill Thousand Suns. But also, like, I would have preferred if it was World Eaters. Just saying. World Eaters are just a better faction over Thousand Suns because, they're at least a bit more funnier. Also, Tzeentch sucks as a Chaos God. That is all. Tzeentch got beaten by a girl and her dog. That is all I'm going to say. Tzeentch sucks. Tzeentch and Tzeentchian demons suck. Good models, but they suck. Again, refer to Bolt Gun, where a named Sternguard veteran was able to gun down 6 Lords of Change. Which I know will not happen in any lore bit, but like I still find that really funny, and I like using it to dunk on Thousand Suns. But yeah, I don't care about these two legions. The Iron Hands and Thousand Suns, like, I don't care. Alright, so we got Black Legion, well, Luna Wolf / Sons of Horus / Black Legion. Which, first things first, look how similar they are to the Iron Hands. Like, the only reason why I was able to tell these two apart is because of the hazard stripes on this guy's gun. Like, it's ridiculous. Meanwhile, we got Black Legion, and I'm gonna be honest, Black Legion I think is actually the weakest of all the, well, aside for this travesty of an option in Thousand Suns, I think Black Legion is the weakest of the Chaos legions. They're kind of just there most of the time. Like, they do by far the most amount of stuff, but also it's like, I would rather see, like, another legion take the mantle of doing everything, of, like, not necessarily taking the mantle, but, being a bit more active rather than it just being Black Legion shows up, Black Legion shows up, Black Legion shows up every single time there's a major Chaos event, and it's like, like, I would prefer if there was other major Chaos war bands going around. Also, Abaddon is a dick. Like, again, I just finished reading the first book of the Night Lord trilogy, and yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of Abaddon from that. Admittedly, I haven't read any, like, Abaddon-focused books, like 100% Abaddon-focused books. I will fully admit that. But just from my general vibe, I kind of like take a look at Abaddon and I'm like, I'm not particularly interested in you. Like, Night Lords are cool. Death Guard are really cool. World Eaters are super cool. Iron Hands are cool because of their shtick of shoving demons in engines. Thousand Suns can die. And Emperor's Children are. They're okay, but I prefer the Loyalist side. So I think I'm actually gonna put Black Legion in C tier. Like they're okay, but also it's like if I was ever gonna pick up a Chaos Space Marine army, it'd be World Eaters, uh, Death Guard, or honestly probably Night Lords. In fact, I'm actually gonna put Night Lords above Iron Warriors. I forgot to like organize that. But yeah, like they're kind of one of those things that were like they're kind of the default, but it's like I don't really care about the default. Um, Also, like I'm not too interested in Abaddon. Like just based off of that one book I read with Abaddon in it and what I've heard generally speaking, I'm like I have no interest in picking up an Abaddon book. I might eventually pick up one, but we'll figure that out. I'll figure that out later if I actually enjoy Abaddon. But like based off of what I've seen so far, just not a fan. Ooh, World Eaters. Oh, wait, not World Eaters. Word Bearers. Again, like the fucking same name convention. I know they're not the same, but like, why are they so similar? Word Bearers. A bit cool. But also it's like basically their whole shtick is that they kind of were like the first to like openly worship chaos because the emperor rejected them and burned out Monarchia. Um, and they have Lorgar, who's, from what I could tell, a pretty interesting Primarch, a guy who's kind of seeking something to worship. And then the emperor rejects him, and then Erebus came in and ruined everything. Um, yeah, word bearers are kind of cool. I enjoy the fact that they are technically the ones behind the Latitio Divinitatis, i.e., the basically the Imperium's Bible. I do find that kind of funny and interesting. Uh, yeah, let's throw them in B tier. I feel about the same as I do with these other three chapters. They're kind of cool. Lorgar's kind of an interesting Primarch. I haven't read a Word Bears book yet, but Word Bears are they're an interesting faction. I don't think I'll ever play them or have really too much interest in diving into them deep, but they're 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 a cool legion. I do think they're kind of interesting. Ooh, salamanders. Okay, we got salamanders. They're obviously going in S tier. They're just great. They're just like the universally liked Space Marine chapter by the fact that they're genuine, actual heroes, as long as you're not an Eldar child. um, Now, that being said, they're not entirely like the goody two shoes. Like, they will still kill people as collateral in order to complete a mission. Like that one time when they blew up a hive in order to stop orcs. But yeah, I like Vulcan. I like Vulcan a lot. I like their whole flame aesthetic. I love their I love pretty much everything about them. I like their culture. I like the fact that they're allowed to be with their families and stuff like that. But I actually somewhat lied. They're not going to go in S, they're going to go in A. And there's a very simple reason for this. I hate their shade of green. I hate it so much. I don't like the lighter green. It's like honestly, if you put the Dark Angels green on salamanders, I'm sold. Like I am there. I love that. I would love that look. If I was ever gonna do salamanders, that's what I would do. I would just take the color of the Dark Angels, throw it on there, and I think it'd be so cool. I like the fact that they're flame focused as well. because flamers are cool. Flamethrowers are just really cool. And you got Vulcan, who's a great protagonist. You have the fact that they're kind of like trying to bring him back. I find really interesting. I also love the little lore bit of Trazen trying to steal the spear of Vulcan, and he gets stabbed with it not once but twice. Like that's funny. I just overall really like the salamanders. They're kind of a likable chapter. Like nothing too wrong with them. All right, next up we got Raven Guard. Not gonna lie, I'm gonna tell you a bit of a story. I decided one time to do a Warhammer Space Marine quiz, and did reasonably okay. Didn't get a lot of the home planets because I'm gonna be honest. Like half the time I just blank that stuff out. But for the life of me, I could not figure out who the 19th Legion was. For the life of me, I spent that entire quiz trying to figure out who the fuck were the 19th Legion. Because I was pretty confident I got every single Legion. But then I took a look and the 19th was completely blank and I was like, how am I missing this? Yeah, it turns out the 19th Legion is the Raven Guard, and it's exactly what I think about them. They are a solid D. They are the faction that I easily just forget about. I forget that they exist, which is kind of weird because taking a look at them, I should love them because they have the more tactical, stealthy like look. But also it's like, cool, you guys exist. That's about it. Like, like again, I'm gonna be honest. Like Raven Guard, I always just blank out my head. Like whenever someone's like naming Space Marine legions, and they go like, "Oh, you have the Raven Guard as well." I'm like, "Oh yeah, there's Space Marine Legion." You have Corvus Corax, who I really want to come to the tabletop because he would have a really sick model, and the fact that he's basically a bird demon now, like that would be cool. I would buy that model because that seems like really freaking cool. But also, it's like, GW's almost never going to do that. They're probably not going to do that. And Raven Guard's just going to continue to sit at D tier, just being the faction where it's like, oh, right, yeah, they're a Space Marine Legion. It's like, I always forget they exist every single time I'm doing anything involved with any of these legions. Either way, let's move on to Alpha, the Alpha Legion. I do enjoy the fact that it's like Alpha, Alpharius, and Omegon, because it turns out the Primarchs are actually split and they're actually twins. I do find that really interesting. I also do like the fact that you don't really know what side they're on. They're technically Chaos Space Marine, but also it's like, who the fuck knows with them? They just kind of do shit. That's about it. Like they infiltrate stuff, they kill stuff, and like I do find that really interesting how they're kind of more like properly sneaky, like infiltration tactics. They're kind of like the Raven Guard, but more of like infiltrators rather than just scouts. But that being said, gonna be honest, don't particularly care that much about Alpha Legion. I'm actually not the biggest fan of like their scale armor. Like I take a look at their scale armor, I'm like, not too interested in that. And also the fact that like there's just a lot of confusing lore on them, and that's kind of their whole shtick. It's like I don't think anyone properly knows anything about the Alpha Legion, but they're kind of cool. I think they're interesting, but yeah, it's also like I would rather do any other Legion except for Raven Guard, Iron Hands, and this monstrosity of a fucking Legion. Yeah, let's actually go through the list. We'll actually go ahead and tier them. So I got Uh, World Eaters and Ultramarines up here. World Eaters, yeah, they're my favorite. They're on top. Ultramarines. Then we got Salamanders, Death Guard. Honestly, I'm gonna probably put Death Guard above Salamanders. Again, it's that stupid fucking green. I fucking hate their green. Looks so ugly. I hate that green armor. Please just put the Dark Angels color on it. It's so much better. Uh, but yeah, like, yeah, so probably Salamanders out that. I'll put Space Wolves. Yeah, probably above Night. Yeah, we'll keep Space Wolves over Night Lords. Um, Night Lords is interesting. Iron Hand. Fuck. You know what? Just for that fucking, I'm putting you guys down to B. Just for having the same, almost the same fucking name as fucking Iron Hands, Iron Warriors. I'm gonna put B tier. Yeah, they're in A, but this stupid name convention with the fucking Iron Hands, it's so fucking annoying. Either way, how are you guys today? But yeah, we'll put Iron Warriors here. I like Iron Warriors over White Scars. Yeah, that's about right. Dark Angels would be better if I liked any other character outside of Lionel Johnson. Like they should be up here with like how I usually think about Space Marines, how I prefer the nightly vibe, but also it's like I would rather pick a homebrew and just do the nightly vibe there rather than do Dark Angels. Um, Imperial Fist, they're pretty cool. Like they're the most like, yeah, I like them, but it's like, would I play them? Probably not. Same thing goes with the Iron, the Word Bearers. Like Word Bearers and Imperial Fist, kind of like they occupy the same zone as me. It's like, they exist. They're cool. Not the biggest fan. Blood Angels, again, I just don't like the vampire aesthetic. But I do like them over Emperor's Children. I'm not a big fan of Slaanesh armies as a whole. But I'll actually give credit to Black Legion. I think I like Black Legion over Emperor's Children. But below Blood... Yeah, that looks about right. I like Blood Angels more than the Black Legion. But, yeah, Blood Angels over Black Legion. Then we got Emperor's Children. Yeah, I'll give credit to the Alpha Legion. I prefer them over Emperor's Children. Then you got the Raven Guard, the forgotten stepchild of the Imperium. Sounds about right. Then we got the two fucking worst Space Marine chapters. Got the Iron Hands, whose Primarch GW is completely disinterested in making a character, and like outside of Dreadnoughts, I just don't care about Iron Hands whatsoever. Then you got Thousand Suns, where literally anything that these Thousand Suns do, there are better factions that do that same stick. You want Egyptian? Go Necrons. Necrons have a great Egyptian vibe. If you want to do Psychers? Grey Knights. And to a lesser extent, White Scars. But, yeah. Just, God, Thousand Suns. F tier. Yeah, they are F tier. Please delete. Yeah, that's the better. Please delete. Get rid of these guys. And this one will do. Who are you? Let's do funny names for all these. We got this is like the okay tier. This is like solid. These guys are probably gonna be like good. These guys are gonna be Unga, Bunga, and thinking. Unga bunga and thinking. Yeah, that's pretty accurate way to describe them. That's like the most orcish way of doing it, but yeah, it's pretty accurate. So we've got the Unga Bunga and Thinking tier up here at the best. We got good tier. We got the solid factions. We got the okay factions. We got the who the fuck are you guys? And we got please delete. Please get rid of these two. But yeah, if you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate if you liked and subscribed, and let me know if you guys are more interested in me diving more into Warhammer. I do want to genuinely jump into it. In fact, I'm thinking about eventually doing a playthrough of Space Marine 2. Does I just want an excuse to play Space Marine 2 again. But yeah. If you enjoyed the video, I appreciate if you liked and subscribed, and have a wonderful day.